Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Xelik Podcast. I am Noah, your current moderator, and I'm with Zane. And today we have a couple of items on the docket to talk about for health, fitness, and nutrition specifically. The four topics are training, sets in the gym, how active you need to be, and your diet. So I'm going to start this time, and I'm going to ask you, Zane, what is the worst thing that somebody can eat?
What is the worst thing that somebody can eat? The worst thing that somebody can eat, the worst thing that a sedentary person could eat is refined carbohydrates. For the reason that I think probably the number one symptom of sedentary people in the US is low energy levels because one, we don't move, which is responsible for low energy levels. And then two, we're just filling our bodies with processed, refined carbohydrates all day long, which spike our blood sugar, spike our insulin levels, and then make us feel exhausted. And so a lot of people that get that 12:30, 1 p.m. crash right after lunch, it's because you probably just ate a ton of refined carbohydrates. So I would encourage everybody to look into something called the glycemic index. And the lower something is on the glycemic index, the less that it spikes your insulin and the less that it makes you feel tired. So if I'm going to eat carbs throughout the day, I eat things like sweet potatoes, oats, fruit. Some fruit is higher on the glycemic index, and in my opinion, it doesn't make me feel tired after because it's natural carbohydrates. But if you're eating things like white rice or white bread or bagels, anything that has sugar in it that is processed, it's going to make you feel exhausted after, and that's where your midday crash is going to come from. So I would say that that's the worst thing for the average person to consume. They're great before or after a workout, but because they give you energy, but only in a sense that you are expending energy, right? Otherwise, they're just going to spike your blood sugar and make you feel exhausted.
So essentially, exactly what the new food pyramid says, nothing at the bottom.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Throughout the day, I typically eat eggs, avocado, meat, cottage cheese, and fruit. That's pretty much it throughout the day. And then I'll save any carbs for dinner. And that helps keep my energy levels super consistent throughout the day when I'm sitting at my desk.
So you're a fats in the morning, carbs in the evening kind of guy. I'm kind of the opposite. I'm carbs in the morning, fats in the evening guy.
Yeah, but you also keep your carb, like you're not eating garbage food,
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I do like kind of the fruit till noon idea where you have a bunch of carbs in the morning and it's usually fruit based. So I do that, and that's a horrible idea for somebody who has terrible self-discipline and doesn't exercise, isn't active, has a low muscle mass. But I think it's a great idea for somebody who's in good metabolic shape, healthy, has a high metabolism, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of times carbs are demonized for weight loss. I mean, carbs are great. It's just what is the type of carbohydrate that you're consuming? What are your goals? What is your activity level? And the times in the day that you want to feel energized. But I mean, carbs before the gym or carbs right after the gym, great.
Yeah. I also think they're demonized because they're the easiest thing to eat. And most people's diets consist of just a lot of carbs. And so you get that insulin resistance roller coaster that you can't get out of if you're not active, if you don't have muscle. And so the common recommendation is remove carbs, regulate your insulin levels, eat more protein, then incorporate carbs back into your diet. And that works for a lot of people. And then they get this paradigm shift of carbs equal bad because I lost a bunch of weight when I didn't eat carbs. And so you get the keto fiends who are super, super about anti-carb, and that becomes their religion. It's the same thing with, carnivore or whatever other diet. It works for them, and it becomes their religion. They speak it, they know it as nothing but truth, and then they think that there's no other way that anything else could be real because they just experienced this whole life-changing event. And so they go anti-carb for the rest of their life.
Yeah, for sure. It's like correlation, not causation, you know? Yeah. You know, do you know why restaurants feed you white bread or chips before your entrees?
Spikes your insulin levels so that by the time the meal's over, you're craving more sweets, sugar, carbs, more insulin. And so you just had a fat, juicy steak, you're satisfied, but you're still hungry. And so you can eat more dessert.
100%.
Yeah, there's absolutely no
That's
reason.
nice. It's to make you hungrier.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why, like, historically speaking, it's totally a marketing and business model ploy. Like, it's very rare you see high protein foods as the appetizer for restaurants, unless they're a great restaurant and they have, meatballs or wings or something like that.
Unless they're already charging you $25 for the appetizer. That's funny. My question for you is around training. One of my clients actually just texted me this today and what do you think about Jeff Nippard's 2-set rule?
Can you explain the 2-set rule?
Yeah, let's look it up together real quick. Jeff Nippard's 2-set rule.
I assume it's that you don't need to do more than 2 sets on any muscle group.
Yeah, so Jeff Nippard's 2-set rule is a high-intensity, low-volume training method where you perform only 1 to 2 intense near-failure working sets per exercise instead of the traditional 3 to 4 sets.
I think it's a great idea if you have trained in nothing but 3 to 4 rep range historically. And if you get this sudden novelty of I'm only doing 2 reps and I'm training way more volume, higher fatigue, your body's going to adapt and it's going to be a new muscle building stimulus that you're not used to. That's going to help build muscle and you're going to get sore off of it, which a lot of people correlate with strength. I am sore, now I am stronger because I broke down my muscle. It's a novelty form of training. It's not a magic formula. My problem with Jeff Nippard is he creates science-based proclamation of his approach to fitness. And yes, okay, you can have a study say 2 sets is as much as you need to build X amount of strength. But that could be for people who have been training for 3 to 4 sets their entire life, and now they just finally changed and did this one novel stimulus, and now it's way better. So like, it's easy to pick studies, and it's really, 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 really hard to isolate the cause of what's attributed to those. And you can kind of depict any study however you want, and then you can get in the whole what's the study funded by, who's doing it, for what purposes, who are the people involved in the studies, for what reason, all these different things. And so I don't think that it's an end-all be-all absolute truth that you should be doing 2 sets regardless of who you are, where you're at in your journey, all this stuff. Yes, you should change up your programming and your volume frequently, but you should not look at it as, well, this is gospel, I'm going to be training 2 sets the rest of my life, I'm not doing any more. If you want to switch it up, great. It doesn't have to be to fatigue either. I mean, I could get just as much of doing way heavier weight with a lower rep range as opposed to lighter weight with a super high rep range to fatigue. And that's still just as good of a muscle building signal. Arguably, it could be better if I've been training in nothing but high rep range forever. So I think it's great if you have done the opposite for a while, if it's a new stimulus. It's not a magic pill.
Yeah. People really love the idea of when somebody comes out with a few word phrase to describe what you should do in the gym for optimal progress. It sticks so well. So the 2-set rule, people are thinking, I can do less work for more results because I'm training 3 sets right now. And Jeff Nippard says I only have to train 2. Well, that's assuming that you are training until failure, both of those sets, or close to failure, which most people probably are not doing. And also that's assuming that you do a pretty intense dynamic warm-up so that you don't hurt yourself when you're training until failure on those only 2 sets that you're doing, which for most people, they don't do an extensive dynamic warm-up routine. So the first set or the second set is like just pumping blood into your muscles and then getting them primed before you train until failure, set 3, set 4. But I feel like a lot of people would just, do 30 seconds of arm circles and then go to a failure on bench press and then, tear their shoulder or,
Yeah.
the
It's the
tendon.
extremes, and the extremes are what sell well in social media because it's like it's like a new discovery. It's the new science of what we've been missing this whole time, and it's not true. It's like the whole, I don't know if you've ever seen the take on the elongated portion of your exercise. Like if I'm doing a bicep curl, the place I get the most strength is in the elongated portion. It's like the back half of the movement where I'm fully extended. My biceps like this portion right here. And so all of a sudden you had all these people who are coming in and saying you should only train in elongated portions. You should never train the shortened portion. There's zero gains. Studies find that if you only do this, then 60% of the muscle development is during the elongated portion. It's like, yeah, you might build more muscle during that position, but like you're not getting strong through the whole range of motion. You're literally limiting yourself on like your capability of your strength in general and like your day-to-day activity. Like, okay, let me pick this thing up off the ground and I can pick it up to here, but I can't get it up to here because I've never trained this range of motion. It's like it's just stupid. It's like you're only as strong as your full range of motion, your full mobility. And so then like people take one fact, they pull it all the way to the extreme and they say only train this way, and like it's ridiculous. You need balance. You need a wild variety of stuff.
What that should teach you, talking about that, the majority of muscle or the majority of your muscle fibers are torn in the negative or, the eccentric or elongated position of the movement, is that you shouldn't be dropping the bicep curls every single time that you're doing a rep, right? You should control it all the way through. It's not that you should only do the elongated portion of a bicep movement. You look like a goober. Yeah.
And I mean, then there's certain angles and various positions you can put yourself in to put yourself at a disadvantage or an advantage of like being able to train a muscle a specific way. So like spider curls, if I'm bent over a bench and I'm doing curls like this, like that's going to train the top head of my bicep a lot more. But if I'm like on I'm on an incline and I'm all the way back here, my arm's way back here, and I'm doing the bicep. Like it works different parts, and you can kind of put yourself at a disadvantage to position the eccentric portion differently, based upon your positioning. You can do that for any exercise. You can do it for squats. You can do it for, a back movement. Like that's why there's different machines in the gym, is because most of them are set on a track at a different angle to try to work your muscle in a unique way that it's not used to, and then also just focus in on a specific portion of the movement where muscle develops either irregularly or
100% agree.
All right. My next question is, how active does somebody need to be outside of the gym? So this question is more so around like, the whole steps conversation. And, if I'm going to the gym and I'm not seeing results, like, hey, I'm doing everything. I'm building muscle. I'm going to the gym once a day. I work remotely. I sit down at my desk all day. I eat fairly well. And I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting as much as I can. I'm not seeing any results. Is there any part of that, or I guess how much of results would you attribute to activity outside of work, gym, things like that?
Yeah. 90% of people are going to benefit from being more active. However, the number of steps that you should get in throughout the course of a day, I think this is another aspect of fitness that people tend to navigate towards extremes. If somebody can't get in 10,000 steps per day, they think that their mind doesn't think, well, I could get 70% of the benefit if I get 7K steps in every day, and that's what's realistic for me in my schedule. So because I can't get 10K steps in every day, then I'm just not going to shoot for a step goal at all. I have tons of clients that have 5,000 step goals, 7,000 step goals, and I think it does matter for the goal of fat loss, but for the average person who just wants to feel good throughout the day and maintain a lean physique, the majority of times that I use a step goal, it's, hey, your total daily energy expenditure in order to get it to the level that we need to, if you want to eat at 1,400 calories a day, for example, and you want to lose a pound of body fat per week, you need to be averaging 10,000 steps per day in combination with your lifts to achieve that level of fat loss. But for the average person who, sits at a desk all day and they don't think that it's realistic to get in 10,000 steps, well, try 4,000, try 5,000. You're still going to get 40 or 50% of the benefit. And if you can get outside for 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes, in the evening, or 15 minutes after lunch, whatever, the health benefits of that are great. So even just saying, all right, I'm going to go for 2 15-minute walks and focusing on that and putting that in your calendar, you'll achieve probably 5,000 steps per day just doing that. You'll get 50% of the benefit as you would, in terms of calories burnt, as, walking 10K steps per day.
I think it makes a difference. I think it's important. It can't become like a detriment to where it's too extreme of a goal. Like, you need to take baby steps, as you were saying. But I think a lot of people are way more sedentary than they think. They're like, oh, I go to the gym an hour a day. I'm active. Well, if you look at your step count and you sit all day for work, you work from home, or you do like your desk job, whatever, your steps are probably lower than like 5,000 on average. And that's considered sedentary. Even some like waitresses, like they're on their feet all day, they're walking, they're active, they're considered like lightly active. Like they're walking, they're moving, they're getting their steps in for sure. But it's pretty like low intensity activity. So yeah, I think it's important to, like, unless you're an athlete, there's really, or you work a blue collar job where you come home and your body's tired and you're like, I need to sit on the couch and do nothing, I'm so dead. You should probably be putting an effort in to go for a walk, go out and move, do something physical, take the dog for a walk, go get the mail and take an extra lap, whatever it is, because you're probably lacking what you think is active is not that active.
For sure. Yeah. Because I built a decent amount of muscle and, just based off the number of calories that I on average eat every day, my step goal is typically 7,000, 8,000 on a day that I don't train. And then I'm shooting for like 5,000 on a day that I do train. So how often do you think that you should train entail failure for optimal muscle growth?
So the question is, how often should you train till failure for optimal muscle growth? Like, how many times per week? Or
How many times? Yeah, if you could walk through, maybe a 6-week workout phase, and then also if I have 4 sets, how many of those should be entail failure?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. Like, training till failure is, there's a lot of factors that play into stress and your energy going into a workout. Stresses from work, stresses from life, relationship. Are you hydrated? Did you sleep well? Did you eat well? All these different things. So if you're living a perfect life and you're locked in on your routine and your regimen about everything, then like ideally you could just structure it like every 3 weeks. In a 6-week program, I'd say like maybe every 3 weeks. So like 2 out of the 6 weeks you're training very intensely, and your nutrition is reflecting that. So you're not eating the same amount of calories when you're training twice as intense. You should probably eat a little bit more calories to justify that intensity shift. But it's a pretty active ebb and flow based on your stress levels, based on what's going on in your life, based on a lot of different things. And so I usually would talk with my clients and ask about their week ahead and how they're feeling about stuff and like their performance in the gym. What that looks like for the gym itself in terms of what you're doing, that doesn't mean you go in and you max out every single lift. I would pick like the biggest lifts that you're working on, the ones that you're wanting to see the most improvement in terms of your strength, the ones that have the biggest bang for your buck, like compound movements, things like that. Those are the ones that I would encourage you going more intense on and going harder. But I mean, at the end of the day, listen to your body. It's way easier. Also, like if you're at a surplus, way easier to go super intense. If you're at a deficit of any sort, like I've been in a pretty moderate deficit for a couple months now, and like I have noticed that I can't train as hard as I usually do. I get tired, I get achy, I have way more, I'm way more injury prone, and so that plays a factor into it. So it really depends on your goal, your outcome, a lot of other stresses in your life. But if you're on like a 4-week program, maybe once every 4 weeks. If you're on like a 6-week program, then you can start dialing it up. But at the end of the day, like I don't want, like it's intensity is one thing that's almost splitting hairs because most people can't even string together 4 weeks worth of workouts at the end of the day. And so I wouldn't really worry much about the intensity of how hard you're going unless you're consistently hitting all of your workouts, throughout those 4 weeks. You're like, how can I take this to the next level? Okay, well, let's add some intensity and, shift around your carb intake, your calories total, things like that to try to get a little bit more. Same goes for the other way. Refeed weeks, deload weeks, stuff like that. You can kind of pull back and do it the other way too.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Xelik Podcast, and we will see you in the next one.